Now, have you seen something in your life that kind of like maybe then you don't necessarily? I'm saying, I guess you don't believe in it, but you don't know how the hell that was possible, kind of thing.
I had a few things, but the thing is, like, you could always kind of explain away these sort of things. You know what I mean? Like one example is when I was like a teenager. I remember I was like staying at my parents' house, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I felt like, you know, when you wake up and it feels like something woke you up, not just like you're just waking up randomly. Like, it just feels like something like kind of.
Well, what time was it?
Oh, it was really late because everybody was sleeping in the house. Like, it was probably like maybe 2, 3, something like that. And I was just kind of lying there for a minute, and all of a sudden,
sorry to interrupt. And that was where in Canada?
Oh yeah. Okay. That was here. Yeah, and it just felt like something like jumped on my back, right? Like a person. I honestly, like, when it was happening, I thought it was a person because we had actually had like some break-ins in the area, and there were like home invasions and stuff in the news. So I had assumed that it was just somebody who was like robbing our house, and whatever it was, it grabbed like both my wrists because I was like sleeping like face down, and it felt like something was grabbing my wrists. And then I heard something basically say in my ear, like it was asking me for like where like where money and alcohol was in the house.
Like whispering?
Not really whispering. It just sounded like just a regular person talking. Like, as if somebody leaned down and was just like asking me for where the money and the alcohol was in the house, like where we keep it, like if they keep it downstairs. But for some reason, I wasn't able to actually like talk or move. Right.
Okay.
So,
and then
basically,
but sorry. But then you woke up or something. I don't know.
No, but see, this is the thing, and this is where it gets weird. Is so I basically, when I asked for where it was in the house, if it was downstairs, I basically like nodded, and I'm still thinking this is like a person that's trying to rob the house. So I'm just trying to get them off me. So the second they actually get up, in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna count to 3, because like I felt them like get up. I'm like, and I'm gonna like basically jump up, and we're gonna fight. And I did. I counted to 3, and I did that, and there was nobody in my room. And I'm thinking, okay.
Were you like, did you feel like tenseness in your body or something? Like, were you like, because you literally couldn't get up like before.
Yeah, but all of a sudden, when whatever was got off me, I felt like I could move again. Like, I just felt like.
But did you feel like a weight on you? Like somebody was actually.
Yeah, it literally felt like at the time I was convinced someone was on top of me and they were trying to like subdue me type thing, and like essentially it was going to be like a home invasion. So my whole thing was, you know, if whatever happens, like if I'm going to get killed or whatever, I'm not going to just like die like a bitch. Like, I'm going to fight this person. So I counted to 3. I flung, like, cause I had like covers up to like my shoulders. I flung them off, and I turned around. There's nobody there. And then I thought about it. I'm like, our stairs in that house used to be like really like loud. Right. And I didn't hear anybody going down the stairs. Like, you can always hear when someone's coming up or coming down. I'm like, wait a second, I didn't hear anybody go down the stairs. Like, I felt this person get off me, but I never heard them go down the stairs, which is where they said they were going to go. So I got up, I kind of looked around upstairs, looked around downstairs, and I'm like, there's nobody in this house.
Oh, so you were by yourself that day?
No, like my parents, they were still in their room sleeping. Okay. My sister was there at the time too. She was in her room sleeping. There's nobody else in the house. Like, I looked around. Like, there was for sure nobody else there. And then, like, at the same time, if it was somebody that was in the house, they would have, you know, been there, right? Like, when I got up, because I got up like 3 seconds after they got up. So that's when I realized that it could have been something more. But when I actually looked into it, like when I got older, I found there's actually something called, I don't remember the name of it. It's like sleep paralysis.
Okay. See, that's the reason why I
wonder if that's what it was.
Like, that's why I was asking you those questions, because that's what it sounded like to me. Because guess what? I used to have it. I haven't had it in years, but I used to have it regularly as a kid. And that freaked the living shit out of me, dude. Like, when that happened. And that's why I was asking you like all these questions, because it sounded to me like you had that sleep paralysis.
Right. But then the only thing that threw me off is like somebody talking to me. Like, is that normal? Like, when that happens?
It can. I mean, I think it's the imagination, because I'll tell you, to me, it was It started when I was a kid, but basically I didn't know, right? So for the longest time, I didn't even know that there was such a thing possible. And basically, I guess for those people who don't know, sleep paralysis is technically, when you go to sleep, your muscles and everything, like your body releases these certain chemicals to relax you, right? So it basically paralyzes your muscles. So this way you're not moving, you're not straining, you can really like relax your body and you can, I guess regenerate, right, as you're sleeping. But then what happens is during sleep paralysis, and it usually happens to people who sometimes tend to sleep with their eyes open, like their eye inverts, but it's the eyelids are a little bit open. And I have that. Like multiple people said that sometimes like one of my eyes or both of my eyes are like slightly opened.
Yeah, I have family that has that where like it almost looks like they're looking at you when they're sleeping.
Yeah. So to me, that's what the thing is. Like I sometimes have my eyes slightly open, and especially if there's like some light or something, and I start thinking. And what happens is you'll actually wake up, meaning you're mentally awake, and you can move your eyes, but your whole body is still paralyzed because of those chemicals that your body naturally releases. So you can't move your muscles. So it almost feels like somebody's either holding you or like you're chained or something. And like you're like, because I remember when I was a kid, I would get freaked out like so much because I would like, like straining like this, and I want to move my arm and I can't. It's like you can't or get up or thing. And the worst was if I fell asleep like on my chest, right, on my stomach, and with like my face to the pillow or the bed, and then I'm like literally having problems breathing, like if I have sinuses or something,
right?
And I'm trying to breathe, but here's like my face is pressed to the bed, and then you wake up and just used to freak the hell out of me. And I used to think that they were just nightmares, right? And then your mind can play all kinds of tricks because you're imagining. And but because I never heard of this thing, and I had the worst nightmares like that, like as a kid, just horrible. And it wasn't until and I remember the worst was actually with my father passed away. I was 19 or 20 at the time, and I remember it was like a few days after the funeral. I was I was already living on my own, but I was like nearby, and I came to see my mom in her house, and she was my dad was gone, so she was kind of felt lonely. She's like, "Oh, just stay here." I'm like, "Oh, okay." She gave me something to eat. It was like middle of the day, just you're feeling lousy, just lose your father, and then afterwards, like I ate this and that. I just had no energy, and I fell asleep on the sofa. And all I remember, dude, it was like the freakiest thing, because I fell asleep on the sofa, and then literally I start like my dad is like somebody goes. And like Tom, like pissed off, and he's like yelling at me, and holy fuck, dude, like I got like, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like my dad's dead, and I hear him and this and that, and then I open my eyes and I realize, okay, I was just sleeping, but no, now I'm awake, and I want to like look, right, and I want to look and turn around because I hear him right behind me, and he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, this and that, like he's pissed off. And I'm going, what the shit? The fuck? It just completely freaked me out.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I remember that moment. I was like, I gotta move, and it was just all of a sudden, I suddenly like, it's like your body like wakes up, and I strained and like, and I woke up, turned around, and of course there was nobody there.
Right.
And I'm like,
sounds exactly like what happened to me. Yeah, that's so crazy. And I never heard of this till like last year when I was like watching like random ghost stories and stuff, and I heard a person that had a story like yours and like mine, where except for theirs, it was like a person that they would see, like this woman, this freaky looking woman that would like crawl across their floor and get on top of them. And she like, like obviously it's like a ghost story, right?
Yeah.
But when I heard about that, I'm like, that sounds so much like my story. See, like, and that's the reason why I think I'm skeptical of a lot of stuff. Cause like you might think, you see something or you hear something, and then, somebody comes with a logical explanation, like what you just said, right?
So, I mean, I don't know if that explains everything.
No, well, maybe not everything, but not that specifically.
But I guess maybe what happened to you, that thing.
Exactly. Like a lot of times there's like, not every time, but a lot of times there's an explanation. I feel like it just really depends on what you want to believe in. I feel like if you want to believe in ghosts and spirits in the afterlife, then you're going to convince yourself. Like what happened to me, if I was the type of person that I like believed in that stuff and I really wanted to, I would have taken that as, oh no, this for sure was like a ghost or a demon or something.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
for me, I'm like, well, I mean, it could be, but it also could have been something else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, but I remember when after that experience, that's when I kind of started on my little journey and I started exploring other things because I really believed like my dad just came and he was like pissed off because, and I think part of it was, again, my imagination playing because my father, my father used to be like, he was like this real tough guy kind of thing. And he used to, yeah, it was a few times where he got violent, beat me up and stuff like that. But he was also at the same time a very loving father. Like, it's hard to say, but like he had the extremes, he was could be very good or could be if I can just turn into a monster kind of thing. But I do remember like because he died of cancer. So the last like year of his life, he knew he was dying and, doctors pretty much told him. So he was as he was going through the whole process and I was there, like every day, or, for like months, I used to drive him to the hospital for the chemotherapy and all that stuff. And then I remember and he did it all pretty gracefully. Like it was almost like he realized all these, like, I guess, mistakes he made in his life, things. And he was like, I got to get better. This is, my last chance. But I remember the very last few weeks, it was this weird thing, but it was like, again, remembering him as a kid, knowing how he could sometimes be, I remember one time he got really pissed off at this guy who was we just came to Canada and we were like sharing an apartment with this other guy, and then my parents were living in another apartment. It was like this whole messed up situation. We didn't have anywhere to live, and we lived in this tiny little room above the store. And anyways, the guy who owned, I think, the place, he basically my parents would like drop off food for us and do things like that. And he would just eat our food, drink our stuff, whatever thing. And he was kind of like telling me and my brother, like, shut up, kind of, whatever. You're just staying here for free kind of thing. And my father got pissed off at him. And I didn't know, but I think he owed my father money. And that's why he did a favor for my dad and kind of said, okay, your kids can stay here while you guys are looking for an apartment. And my dad just came and like unleashed on this guy. My dad used to practice boxing.
Yeah,
no, he like
that's what I was thinking. As soon as you said that he went at the guy, I'm like, oh, that's
yeah. So he nearly killed the guy. Like I remember at the end, he punched him, this and that, and then he threw him down the stairs. And the guy, he was in the hospital. They kept on asking him all this stuff. My dad kind of went into hiding, and then pretty much after that, we all thought like my dad is gonna have to like run away from Canada. Actually, turned out that guy was illegally in Canada. He ran back to Poland, and we never saw him again. But anyways, having that memory of my dad, having like this, you don't bullshit with my dad, right? And then seeing him as a dying man and seeing how he turned like completely around, and he was trying to be more gentle, more understanding. I was like, oh, okay. But then, like I said, the last few weeks before he passed away, he was, and it was like you could see like he was trying to control this frustration, because again, here's a guy who his whole life he didn't ask anybody for help. He did everything he fucking wanted to do, all this stuff. He was this, ultimate, at least in my eyes, macho kind of guy. And then suddenly he couldn't do sometimes basic things like get up and go to the bathroom, or his, holding a glass, like his hand was shaking.
Does to people, it really like will break you down. Like it's horrible.
You watched your mom die, right, of cancer.
Exactly. And it's like you said, there's certain things that you're a proud person, and there's certain things that you wouldn't do, that you think you would never do, and that like you said, getting up and going to the bathroom sometimes, that's too hard for you to do. And that would be a hard thing to accept. I was thinking of it like while watching my mom go through it. I'm like, man, like I would have all these same feelings. It's tough.
Yeah. So what's it called? What do you call it? So watching my dad there, go through that and seeing him get like frustrated, it was kind of like, I mean, he wasn't nearly how he could have, like how I sometimes remembered him as a kid, but I do remember like these moments where, like I said, like a few weeks before he passed away, where he was just this frustration he had. And I think that's why when I had that sleep paralysis, and here I am thinking about my father, he just passed away, all these things going through my mind. And I'm constantly having this image of like the last few weeks where I just saw him always pissed off. And and like kind of, getting frustrated, but trying to control it. But and I think it just kind of, again, my imagination went into a thing, because again, I wake up, I'm paralyzed, my mind's starting to like trying to make sense of it, and I can't, and this and that. And then I start thinking my dad. And then, I think I just, made up the whole voice. Like my dad was never there and nothing. Now, of course, I remember like once I managed to get up and suddenly like the thing, and I turned around, there was nobody there, and I started looking for my mom. My mom wasn't thing, and then it turns out my mom was out walking her dog. So when she came, there was nobody else to tell me, like, okay, I didn't hear anything. So that made it even more, mysterious. But I was like, fuck, maybe he was there. It was just weird. That was a weird experience.
That's the thing. Like I said, it depends kind of on, your perspective on life, I guess, and the afterlife. Because I know some people that would tell you, oh, that for sure happened. And then I know some people that would, say that it was sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like
I still, right? Like, I guess you don't know, but to me, I think it was sleep paralysis, because after that, that's when I began this whole journey of like learning about like these, like for example, that what happened then, and I came in completely thinking, because again, at that moment, I still didn't know about sleep paralysis. I was like, holy fuck, like I just saw my dad. I told my mom totally believed it, she's like, holy fuck, and then all this stuff. And then I remember it took me a few years, and we've heard different stories, different things. And then finally I came across, it was this guy who was talking about sleep paralysis. And I was like, he said that it was first people noticed it like during the Renaissance in Europe, like there were these stories again of ghosts and stuff. And it turns out it was sleep paralysis. And this one guy diagnosed it and all that stuff. And I started reading about it. And then, dude, I remember once I like found out all these different informations, like, as much as I could about sleep paralysis. And I literally would do experiments after that. It got to a point where like I pretty much could control it.
It kept happening to you, right? Is that what you're saying?
It kept happening, but you know what? Because it's just like I said, especially when you're sleeping with your eyes open. So then I did these experiments where if I put an actual, like, the like a little, like something to cover your eyes.
Like those masks, those sleep masks.
Yeah. So even if my eyes open, all I would see is pitch black. I never had sleep paralysis.
Oh, okay.
But if I think also if I fell asleep in the room that had maybe where I didn't have my eyes covered, but that had a bit of light even, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or if it was during the day, if I fell asleep, then I would have the sleep paralysis. And I started just doing like this process of elimination and experiments. And I remember finally and I started rationalizing, thinking, so this is probably what's happening. I'm just paralyzed because my body's still asleep, but my eyes open and my mind's like, what the fuck's going on, kind of thing. And I remember one time, I mean, it was literally like an experiment, but like I did it to a point where I basically fell asleep. And then and I had all these lights on and this and that, like on my face and stuff. And I remember, again, I'm a very inquisitive person. I want to find out about how everything works. And it got to a point where we could say scientifically tested it by doing experiments like that.
And it worked.
And I remember because I would play something. I played like a movie or something that I had going on the screen, and something that I've never seen before. And I literally would open my eyes, and the first reaction was still like, oh my God, like I'm, because it feels just fucking weird that you're paralyzed. Right. But then I'm telling myself, okay, this is just sleep paralysis. Nothing's happening to you. Just relax. And I literally calmed myself down. I didn't struggle anymore. I didn't try to like forcefully move my muscles and stuff, and like move my arms or legs. And then I literally remember I was watching the screen, and I'm like, okay, this is what's happening. So try to remember this and that. And then I remember a few times after that, because I relaxed my body, my body, I could literally feel like this tingling sensation, and I could start feeling my fingers moving and this. And then I'm like, holy shit, I woke up fully, like was my eyes open. And a few times I was so tired that I went back to sleep. And then when I woke up normally, I would look at it, the tape that I was playing, and I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I saw. So I wasn't imagining it. I was literally awake, but when my body was asleep. And over that process, I kind of, I mean, I've hadn't had it happen to me in years. I think the last time.
Do you sleep? Do you continue? Did you continue using like a mask, I'm assuming?
No. So I just sleep normally now. But I do remember there was like a few times where, like when I first met my wife, which was, it's probably going to be like 8-9 years ago. And I had a few moments like where I had that, and then my wife noticed. Like she would like, wake me up, and she's like, Tom, what's going on? And then when she started shaking me, then I was like, oh, okay, it was just sleep paralysis.
How did she notice? Were your eyes just like darting back and forth or something?
She just said that like sometimes she would look at me like because she would wake up because I started like it's like I wanted to talk, but all I would make sounds is like that because again I can't move my muscles. And she said like sometimes it felt like I was twitching. And then one time the light, she turned on the lights and she could see that my eyes were a little bit open. And she's like, yeah, it was very freaky. I remember she told me. And I was like, sorry, but don't worry. I'm not going to murder you in the middle of the night. And I think
that makes sense what you're saying. Like your eyes being open kind of triggers you to wake up, but not fully wake up. But I wonder because I don't have that, like where I sleep with my eyes open. It only ever happened to me one time.
Now, maybe, I have heard over the years, like I said, different cases where to different people, it's brought on because of certain other things. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it could be something else that's stringing in you. But if you start literally doing process of elimination, you'll soon figure out. And then you'll also, but the biggest thing for me was to not freak out. Mm-hmm. Like literally, now I've gotten so good that even in my sleep, I still have sometimes bad sleeps, but like a nightmare. But even then, if I have a nightmare, it's like almost like I realize that, I'm just still sleeping and let's just fucking have fun with this kind of thing. You know what I mean? Right. I don't get as like pulled into it as I used to as a kid, right? So I think.
Well, now you're used to it. You've had a ton of experience. You did experiments. So, I mean, at this point, you should be used to it, right? You did it a bunch of times. So,
yeah,
that's really interesting.
But it's funny when you were saying that I'm like, it sounds like sleep paralysis, but I mean, what do I know, right?
It's funny that you actually know about it because like anybody I've ever told that to, they have no idea about that. And usually other people are way more convinced of it being something supernatural than me. I'm like, I don't really know. They'd be like, trust me. And I'll be like,
yeah.